right. Okay. Well, it's good to see everyone. Thanks, as always, for joining us during your lunchtime. We really appreciate that. Again, like I was saying earlier, if you're coming in, cameras on or off, that's totally your choice. But we do ask that you mute your microphones just so we don't have any background noise and all of that. So with that being said, we will go ahead and get started. Hopefully you can see my screen okay. But today we're going to be talking about making the most of Shop Small Weekend. So I'm going to present for a little bit, but I would love for this to be also a time for us to all share ideas, questions, any of that. So one thing I'll be asking later on in the presentation is just for ideas, ways that you guys celebrate Shop Small, unique events that you kind of cater around it, or ways that you support your businesses. Abby Huff actually posted on our Facebook page the other day, and she kind of asked a similar question. So I'll share some of those as well, but I want to give you guys an opportunity first to talk a little bit about those. So be thinking on that as I'm presenting, because I would love to hear some people's ideas. And I think that's one of the most valuable things we can do for each other is just share some of that. Those best practices. So yeah, with that being said, we'll go ahead and dive in. Just make sure everything's okay, good. All right. Okay, so our agenda today, first we're going to talk a little bit about some prep strategies. So these are just some more big idea things to be thinking through kind of throughout the year leading up to Shop Small. So one thing I want to make a disclaimer on is if you're on this and you're like, we really have not done any planning around Shop Small Weekend, maybe you guys just kind of do some last minute things every year. That's totally okay. But one thing I encourage you to do is start really thinking about Shop Small before, kind of at the beginning, honestly, when you start work planning for the next year, and kind of prepping ahead of time, because I think, again, this whole Lunch and Learn is talking about how to make the most of this weekend. And I think the way that it can have the most impact is if you plan ahead, and because you can really, not only for your businesses, but also for you, because we're going to touch on Giving Tuesday and some other parts of that weekend that, because people are thinking so hyper local that weekend, there's a lot you can do to make the most of it. And so we're going to talk a little bit about some of those more broad strategies, things to be thinking of. And I'll also share some best practices that I pulled from some other Main Street professionals or other executive directors from around the country that I pulled from The Point, and I'll share some of those. And then we'll talk a little bit about making a plan around Shop Small Weekend, again, kind of going off of that. Make sure that you have your microphone muted. I'm getting some feedback. Thank you. Perfect. So yeah, we'll talk a little bit about making a plan, and then we'll touch briefly on Giving Tuesday. I will say, I think Giving Tuesday is a broader topic, kind of based more in that building of like donors and fundraising. The information I actually pulled for the Lunch and Learn today about Giving Tuesday is from nonprofit Tech for Good. They just did a free webinar around Giving Tuesday. So I will send that out to you guys in the follow-up from today's Lunch and Learn. And I encourage you to take some time to definitely read through that. I'll also send this amazing cheat sheet that they created out. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then that really leads us into our discussion and idea sharing time. So again, I would love to hear from you all. What are some things you've done? What's gone well? What hasn't gone well? All those kinds of things around the Shop Small Weekend. I know a lot of you do holiday promotions, things like that, kind of in that weekend. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we'll just have a wrap up and thank you. So that being said, we'll go ahead and get started and talk a little bit about the prep strategies. So again, these are more just broad things to be thinking of, especially if in the past you haven't really done a ton with Shop Small, and you haven't really done a lot of planning ahead specifically. So again, this weekend can be a huge revenue generator for your businesses, but also for you potentially in terms of, again, getting donations, teaching people about Main Street. So at the beginning of the year, ideally when you're working on your work plan, which I know many of you right now are kind of starting to work on 2023 work planning, start thinking of shop small then, and really start planning out not only kind of the basic logistics, because again, I know many of you do some events around shop small. You might have other things kind of in correlation with it. Um, but also for the lead up and the marketing around it. I think often we kind of think of like, okay, what are all the things we need to do for the event itself? But also, what are the things in the months leading up to November that we can be doing to really teach people about our downtown businesses, what they offer, what's the importance of shopping local, what are some stats around that that maybe you can share, and then also beginning to start marketing your actual shop small weekend to people ahead of time. So something to be thinking about again is just not just that weekend, but what does the lead up need to look like? Breaking down each of the days of that weekend that you could utilize. So, for example, I think I was talking to Abby Huff, and she was saying that when she was a director, they did Plaid Friday. And Abby, I don't know if you want to speak to that a little bit about what that looked like for you guys.
Yeah, so when we would do this, obviously Black Friday is huge, and but it's really focused on, your corporate businesses. So we wanted to be the opposite of that. So there is this kind of movement called Plaid Friday, where you shop local, you kind of decorate with plaid. I happen to be wearing plaid today, which is funny. But it really is just kind of promoting those, hey, stay away from big box businesses and continue to shop local, have fun with that kind of plaid theme.
Yeah, so that's something that, I think we often forget is that there could be ways and checking in with your businesses. I mean, I'm sure many businesses might be closed on that day. I get it. That's part of a holiday. So I know all of our downtown businesses might have different, hours, but check in with them because some of them might have sales going on, things going on. Is there ways that you can support and try to keep pointing people in their direction, even on Black Friday, or Plaid Friday? And then obviously the big one being Small Business Saturday, being kind of the day that many people know about. And I'll hit on this several times throughout this presentation, but I always like to remind people that, Small Business Saturday is one of those times. And I know even in my circles, when I tell people what I do and like, for us, those of us who work in kind of downtown revitalization and we're thinking about these things all the time, whereas many people they might not think about shopping local like until Small Business Saturday, and that's typically when I'll see people post about it like, oh yeah, I'm going to go to my local stores, but then often throughout the year they're going to the Amazon and Target and all the kind of more big box stores. So really making sure you're capitalizing on the fact that this might be the one or two times a year they're really thinking of like, oh, I want to go downtown and I want to shop at some of my local businesses and I have money ready to spend, and so really capitalizing on that. But yeah, so that being the big day obviously, but then also Cyber Monday. I'm sure many of your downtown businesses, not all, but some have websites, online stores where they're going to do maybe continue on some of those sales, even on their online platforms. So really making sure that you're promoting that if some of your businesses have that. And then the big one for you all would be Giving Tuesday. So kind of coming off on that hyper local, like really encouraging people to support local. Part of that too is for them to give to you as an organization who is supporting their downtown businesses, who is helping revitalize downtown. And so really encouraging them to also give their money to you. So yeah, it might look different for each of you, but I think it's important to think through how to make the most of a weekend. Again, like this, when people's wallets are most readily available, to go to your local businesses and you, but also just to generally educate them on what's going on in downtown. This might be, again, one of the rare occasions that some of the people who live more out in maybe rural areas around your community or in suburbs around, this might be a rare occasion that they come downtown, and that they want to come downtown to shop. And so it's a great time for you to have maybe a booth up or somewhere kind of central where they can learn about what are the other things you guys are doing as an organization, what are other exciting events coming up or things going on downtown. Also kind of educating on like them on how do you continue to support local even after Small Business Saturday is over? So really, again, capitalizing on that time where there might be people who don't often come downtown who are there. Um, Obviously, if you're planning to do some kind of event or program focused around Small Business Saturday, make sure that you talk to your downtown businesses about it early. Make sure you have their buy-in. I think this is something I'm sure many of you are already doing, but make sure that what you're doing is in line with what will actually help them. I think sometimes we can think in our heads, oh, this is a great idea. I think this will bring foot traffic, but maybe it doesn't, and maybe they have past experience saying, hey, it actually didn't work out when we did this, the passport system for Small Business Saturday. I think we should try something different. Um, so just make sure you get their input. You might have some businesses who you don't have their buy-in and who don't want to take part. You do the best you can. You invite them in. It's their, they have to be the ones to say yes or no. But people who are in and you have their buy-in, just make sure you're getting feedback from them about what might actually serve them well on that day, and how you can best support them. And then lastly, sounds cliche, but have fun with it. I think this is a really fun weekend that can be, yeah, again, such a fun time just to celebrate your downtown and what all the amazing assets and businesses that are there. So again, this is a time where people might be coming down for the first time in a while. Maybe there's been a lot of changes in downtown since they've been there. So it's a good opportunity for you as an organization too to connect with residents, tell them all what's to offer in their downtown. Again, this plays into a lot of that marketing and prep, and I'll talk more about that soon. But and inviting them of how they can get further involved in local efforts. So again, if you need volunteers, if you need board members, great time for when they're downtown to say, hey, if you're interested in helping to continue to support local, considering being a volunteer with Main Street, or joining our board, or whatever it might be. But a good time to also put that out there as well. So those are just some kind of more broad things to be thinking about as you're prepping for Small Business Saturday. So these are some of those advice from some of those other Main Street professionals or fellow directors from across the country that I pulled from the point that I thought were pretty helpful. So the first one's talking a little bit about they have another big event at the beginning of November where they give out shopping bags that feature what Small Business Saturday will be offering, basically. So then people can plan ahead. They know well ahead of time, okay, oh, cool, this boutique's going to have 50% off of, all their sweaters or whatever it might be. But this is why the planning ahead is so important, because if you know those things from your businesses somewhat ahead of time, I know many of you do, Halloween events, lots of fall fests and those types of events. That's a perfect time to get flyers in people's hands. Obviously they did like shopping bags, but you could do a lot of different things to then tell people, hey, come back on this, on Small Business Saturday and come shop because here's all the amazing deals that businesses are going to have. So I thought that was a really helpful way to again do some of that prep and marketing ahead of time. I thought this was interesting because I know many of you do different kinds of, for Small Business Saturday, some people do like the passport event kind of promotion thing where they go in and people get a passport when they go into each of your businesses. But someone had mentioned that they kind of tend to steer away from that because some of their retailers found that this type of promotion encourages people to rush around. Maybe they're just trying to get their passport stamp so they can get whatever the prize or the kind of end goal might be, and it might interrupt. They might be interrupting some of the sales clerks or not really shopping. So they were saying if you do a passport type promotion, make sure there's enough time allotted so people can actually shop. And also, I think I would say like typically I know when I've talked to some of you, it's that you encourage people that they have to spend at least maybe like $5, or there might be a baseline of what they need to spend in the store to then get the passport stamped, which is more just so that people aren't like rushing around to get things and not really slowing down to actually see what's in the shop and encourage them to spend money there. So that's one thing to think about if you do some kind of passport or stamp promotion. One of the things I always suggest for events is that maybe don't always lend themselves to shopping, which this is more of like generally, obviously Shop Small Saturday, your events are probably going to be like based around encouraging people to go into your local businesses. But I thought this was a cool idea is also encourage your businesses to do a come back tomorrow discount. And I would say for Shop Small Saturday, it might be a come back next weekend or come back, you can leave it up to them how they want to do that. But I think that's a really neat idea just in terms to get people to come back and keep shopping. If they have a coupon or they know there's going to be another great sale, that's going to obviously incentivize them to come back into that store. This one talks about how Staunton begins their Small Business Saturday promotion in early November with a holiday kickoff event. So when coordinating the event, they focus on shopping, spending a lot of time compiling information from businesses. Again, some of that prep. This also, I think, plays into get some of those measurable goals kind of set ahead of time. So what do you want to know at what was the outcome of Small Business Saturday for your businesses? So maybe ask if they can track, foot traffic or obviously revenue, how much money did they make? Things like that. Grab some of, kind of encourage that to be captured ahead of time. That way afterwards you can really get a sense of, okay, how did it go? What do we need to improve for next year? Where were the wins? Where were maybe some opportunities that we could play into, things like that. And then, so they're saying compiling information from their businesses and encouraging stores to plan an activity or a sale or stay open late. And then on the day, they create a holiday atmosphere with carriage rides and strolling choirs. So that also is a fun thing to do, is think about fun ways that you can make the shopping experience great. That's a place where Main Street organizations can play a great role, is number one, helping promote the businesses, but then also just create a fun atmosphere downtown while people are shopping. So that might be setting up hot chocolate stands. That might be having, if you have a really long Main Street, like a lot of blocks, maybe it's for the day you have a little trolley that takes people up and down Main Street, and that way the businesses all the way down at the end of your downtown corridor, maybe they're not getting missed. So just ideas of think about ways that in your community specifically that you could make it fun for people who are there and shopping. If it's bad weather, have some ponchos or, kind of think on the fly of some ways that you can still encourage people to be there. This last one I found incredibly important, which was having a clear map and wayfinding. Even if the wayfinding signage is not permanent, but having that for Small Business Saturday weekend is huge. So again, maybe people who just don't come downtown a lot, they're not maybe going to know that you have a furniture store kind of tucked behind this other building, or they might not know that there's a new art supply store or whatever it might be. So having a really nice detailed map that shows, okay, here's where our boutique is and our art supply store and the restaurants that you can eat at while you're downtown, and having that all really mapped out clearly for people, I think is huge for that weekend. And I think you'll probably hear people say like, I didn't know we had X store. You always hear people say that when they start to realize like all the amazing businesses that you do have. So yeah, and then wayfinding signage too. If depending on how your downtown is set up, you can always say like, oh, these stores are this way, and maybe these are this way. So just some ideas. So I wanted to let Abby talk a little bit about this, and I have a picture, but Abby was telling me about something that, again, she did when she was a director, which was filling Shop Small bags with like offers and things from local businesses. So do you want to talk about that a little bit, Abby?
Sure. So, again, as Abby had stated, we started early. We actually, it was probably July, we reached out to our businesses saying, hey, we're going to fill the American Express Shop Small bags with offers or promotions, or even, if they're a service business, we wanted to get them involved too. I saw Anna just had a question in the comments about that. So we said, hey, if you have any promotional materials, like, a company did hand sanitizer, or our co-working space did get an hour free of time to work in the co-working space, or whatever. We had the bookstore, they just gave out their bookmark to promote themselves. You know, they didn't want to do any kind of discounts, but they still wanted to be involved. So we started early. We asked a lot of questions about like, hey, you could do anything. The popcorn place gave us popcorn, and then talking about a coupon, they gave a coupon to come back in January in that first quarter where it's very slow for them. So that kind of helped generate people, get people through the door. And we did it a couple different ways. So the first year, we handed out, we had people come to us to our office and we handed out the bags. But we found out it was actually easier for us to give, our district was pretty big. It was actually easier for us to give the bags to the businesses. So if they participated, so if they gave us a coupon or a promotion, we gave them the bags to hand out. And that was just the retailers that we gave to hand out, because we knew that those were the ones who were seeing the most traffic that day. And we also, you can kind of see in this photo, American Express pulled back a lot on what they're giving as their free goodies. But we wanted to promote ourselves too. So we used the few bags that American Express gave us, but then we also had a local print shop make us a bag that kind of showcased our district with the different buildings, and it had our logo. So then later on, we actually started selling these because people loved them so much. So, you know, again, how can you get business? How can you get revenue for your Main Street program as well?
Yeah, thanks, Abby. Yeah, I think that's such a good idea. And I know I'll show some more examples, some pictures that I grabbed from some of your or organizations around Indiana that I pulled some examples of. But I know like the Heart of Lebanon did this one year, but I think that's such a fun idea because it also just reminds people when they have that bag too. It reminds people of that day, of shopping local, of your organization. So I think that's a really cool idea. And that being said, I think I mentioned this somewhere in the further on in the presentation, but if you are not signed up to be a neighborhood champion, we've been trying to send stuff out about it on our Facebook page. I know Abby sent stuff in the Main Street Monday email, but if that's something that you don't know about, that is through American Express. So they are the ones who you go through to become a neighborhood champion, and then you're able to get all these marketing materials, like the shop small bags and they'll do like window clings and things like that. So make sure they always open it up in October, usually sometime in October. And then you just put in your information and they'll verify it. And then they'll ship you all the marketing materials. So that's a great way to get some free marketing for Shop Small Weekend. Highly encourage you take part in that. Okay, so this is just kind of a flow chart. I like flow charts, so that's why I put it into this format. But when you're thinking about Small Business Saturday, the whole weekend as a whole. And so again, you can see I kind of have it broken out into some of the opportunities. So, you know, first looking at Friday and Sunday, those are kind of the two off days, I guess I would call that weekend. Again, looking at Friday of that weekend, if you want to do Plaid Friday or do something to keep, you know, encourage people to shop local rather than, you know, maybe go to the bigger box stores. As I said earlier, check in with businesses. Are they doing any kind of Black Friday sale? Will they be open? Maybe your coffee shop is opening up early in the morning because maybe they know people are going to be up shopping, going to some of the sales, you know, kind of just get a sense of what's going on that day. That way you can maybe schedule ahead of time some social media posts to put out that day or encourage people again to shop at what is available in your downtown. And then Sunday, that's kind of a break, obviously, between all the different things that are going on that weekend. But again, maybe if you do have some kind of, you know, I know on Facebook and Instagram, you can schedule your posts ahead of time. So maybe make sure you have some kind of promotional post to go out. That's the day after Small Business Saturday. So maybe you just say, thank you so much to everyone who came out on Small Business Saturday. And then maybe later on in the week, you can do more like, here was the impact, here was the amount of revenue that was generated because of you. You can do some more of that sharing of those stats. But definitely make sure you maybe get something out on that Sunday even, just to keep it, again, on top of people's of mind. And then Cyber Monday is the next day. So you might be sharing out, again, reminding people, here's all the Cyber Monday deals, don't forget, etc. Obviously Giving Tuesday, actually, let me start back at Small Business Saturday. So as we already talked about, those planning for those pre-promotions. So be thinking about the planning leading up to the weekend, what all is needed. And then, but also post promotions. As I just said earlier, you want to have maybe some social media posts. Maybe you even take some video that weekend where you have people talk about their favorite downtown business, or you talk to a business owner who might want to share some of their story of from that weekend or the impact from Small Business Saturday. But gather some of that. So then in the next few months, when it is the slowest time for many of your businesses, as Abby was saying earlier, make sure that you are still promoting them and really pushing people to come shop local, especially during that first quarter when things get really slow after the holidays. And then, yeah, remember to capture those measurable stats as well. So go see your businesses afterwards and ask them, okay, what were the numbers here, or what was the impact? And then Cyber Monday, any downtown businesses doing online sales on Cyber Monday, heavily promote that. You might create like a graphic showing all the different types of sales that are going on. Make sure you provide links to the websites, all those good things, so that people know and can shop local that way. And then Giving Tuesday, ideally there should be a lot of prep emails going out to donors for Giving Tuesday for your organization. And I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. But I just think it's helpful. Maybe like the flow chart will help you think of it this way. But when you guys, again, are kind of doing your work planning or thinking through Small Business Saturday, it might be smart to kind of map it out this way, of break down each day and say, okay, what all is needed, so that we're making, again, the most of it that we can. Okay, so these are just some fun pictures that I grabbed from some of your fellow Indiana Main Street communities. Shout out to anyone who is on from these communities. But we pulled this picture from Auburn Main Street. I just loved this, that they had some fun kind of props that people could take pictures with. Again, a lot of this stuff is the American Express Shop Small marketing materials. So amazing. Use those that they send. And I thought that was really fun. So, have people take pictures and share some of that. This is from downtown Wabash. I liked that they had, the hearts hanging in the windows. If you can get some of this marketing materials to your businesses, again, ahead of time, they can put up the window clings, hang things in their windows. That way, when people are walking by, they'll kind of already get a sense of like, oh yeah, shop small weekend. And it's just that kind of good in-person marketing. And then this was the Heart of Lebanon, their bags that they did, that I mentioned earlier. I thought those were so fun, such a fun way again. And yeah, most likely people, once they see those, they're going to be like, I want a really cute tote bag with like some of our downtown businesses or buildings on there. And so you could use it as a revenue generator as well, like Abby said. So those are just some fun little pictures that I wanted to share. Okay, so this is like a very quick overview of the Giving Tuesday cheat sheet that I will share with you after we wrap up today via email. And there's a presentation again this is from Nonprofit Tech for Good. They do a whole webinar on it, so I'll send that all to you. But Giving Tuesday, you really can do a lot of prep and planning ahead of time. And this can kind of fall under your fundraising and your donor engagement efforts. But if you do the prep and planning for this, Giving Tuesday can be a huge revenue generator for you and a huge donation day. So there's a lot of different ways you can go about it, but I do think they broke this down in a very helpful way, kind of in 3 different phases and some steps underneath each of those phases. So starting with phase 1, is they talk a little bit about reviewing that historical data. So again, whatever you know from years past when you've done Small Business Saturday, and maybe you haven't done a ton of great goal setting and then capturing those measurable goals. But even if you can ask businesses, hey, what were some of your sales from last year? Or do you remember foot traffic, or kind of how busy the store was? Kind of try to get some sense of that historical data. Make that is also true for you. What is your historical data for Giving Tuesday? Maybe you've never done Giving Tuesday before, but maybe you do know that during the holidays, your donations tend to take and have an uptick. Maybe you get 25% more, in-person donations at events or something like that around the holidays. So try to capture some of that historical data. That way you can kind of know where your goal is at for this year for Giving Tuesday. Obviously determine your need. This is kind of where that goal setting comes in of like, okay, we looked at the historical data. What is our need for this year? Where could Giving Tuesday play a role in giving us an influx of revenue to help in different areas? Maybe you're really wanting to start a facade grant program for your downtown buildings. And so you're going to need about a little bit of an influx of cash or whatever it might be some of those big goals that you want to hit. Determine what that is and determine a number. And don't be afraid to set a goal and share that number with people of like, we're trying to raise $7,000 for XYZ, whatever the need is for your organization. Step 3, go for the story. So what is your story? Obviously we just did, we're talking a lot lately about how to tell your story. We just did an annual reporting webinar where we talked a little bit about sharing some of those stats, but don't be afraid to tell the stories of downtown while you're kind of talking and encouraging people to give on Giving Tuesday. So think about what your story is and how you're going to market that out to people. And that way people can get invested and know kind of, again, what they're giving to, why this is important and why it's a part of supporting local. Lean on your network. You guys have some amazing board members, volunteers, partner organizations in your community that are your network that can help share this out for you. So I'm sure many of them would be happy to share a Facebook post or to, do whatever it might be to, share, hey, can you give to Main Street this Giving Tuesday? And let them also share that message for you. And then, obviously set the stage, kind of know how you're going to go about, again, doing all of these things. And this is kind of leads us well into phase 2, which first step in that phase is communicating your theme. So I know in the past, when I've watched some of the nonprofit Tech for Good, when they've done Giving Tuesday trainings, I always like that they really hone in on having kind of a theme for each year. So it might be, one I heard in the past was like, it only takes $2. And so that was a campaign that a nonprofit did where all they were asking people was for $2. And so they'd be like, it only takes $2. In our case, it would be like, it only takes $2 to make an impact in downtown or to make downtown a better place to live or to live, work, and play or whatever it might be. But you have this really kind of fun theme or tagline to kind of bring people in. And $2 feels really easy. And typically what people have found is that when they do something like that, people give more than $2. They will typically give $10 or $100 or maybe more even. So it's really fun to see people, and that also gives people access, people who maybe don't have, $10 to give, but they would love to give you $2. If that's still something. And I think that's a really fun way you can kind of create a theme around giving to your organization on this day. Make sure to be communicating the impact of your campaign. So that's kind of step 2, is talking about when people give those $2 or more, what's the impact going to be? What's it going to go towards? And so really make sure, again, that kind of goes into knowing your story, knowing what your goal is with these funds that might come in through Giving Tuesday. Really have that clearly laid out. That way you can communicate that when you're marketing it out to people. Create hype, get people excited, have board members go out, encourage people to give. Maybe I know many of you are having holiday events and again, fall events. Get people out there to get people excited about the campaign and how it's going to make downtown a better place to live and to come and play, and we can make our businesses and our buildings look better, and you can get people really invested in the work that you're doing, especially when there's a lot of energy and excitement around it. So find some ways to do that. And then step 4 kind of being plan for updating and stewarding any new donors that are coming in. So you might have, again, definitely make sure you're engaging your reoccurring donors during this time. It's a good time just to say, if they're kind of consistent givers to your organization, great. They might want to give some more during Giving Tuesday, or, this might be around the same time where you do a yearly ask anyways. So encourage them, but also make sure you have a plan for getting any new donors into your system. So if you do like email, like if your donors are in like an email system where you send them like newsletters and updates and things like that, make sure that you get all these, even if they just gave $2, get them into your system. That way they can stay in the know about what's going on with Main Street. And you can update them obviously with what you did with the funds. And that leads well into phase 3, which is kind of in the kind of the after Giving Tuesday, which is keeping supporters in the know. So anyone who gave during that time is now in your system, and you should continue to keep them updated of like, here was the impact that you had from giving to us. And odds are that will most likely encourage them to keep giving to you, because they'll get to see some of the fruits of what they gave to. Always report on your efforts. So again, what went well, what didn't, did we hit our goal? If not, that's okay. What ways can we do that, and share that out with people? You can even say, hey, we didn't hit our goal of 6,000, but if you want to continue to give, maybe you're doing like a Facebook fundraising campaign or something like that. Keep encouraging people to give even after Giving Tuesday is over. So know how to kind of report and talk about some of the efforts that you made. And then lastly, very importantly, is express your gratitude to anyone who gave. So make sure you send thank you letters or an email, or, you can always post that when maybe you hit your goal, or however much you made from Giving Tuesday, share that number and say thank you so much to those of you who gave, and again, lay out the ways that this is going to impact your downtown in a positive way. So that is a very succinct version of kind of that cheat sheet, but here is a screenshot of an example of what it looks like. So they literally have it broken out into like a nice checklist. So I will share this with you guys, and I definitely, feel free to use this. I know this year we're getting close to Small Business Saturday weekend at this point, so you might be a little bit, maybe you won't be able to do it as full out this year, but I definitely encourage you in the future to, as you're work planning for 2023, look at these checklists and think through, okay, how can we be adding that in to really have a amazing Giving Tuesday? Okay, so now we are kind of in our sharing time. So I want to open it up to all of you. And I know we had some, let me pop over here so I can see what was in the chat. Yeah, so Anna, you asked about, could you share some strategies or ideas on how to include non-retail and non-restaurant businesses? So service-based real estate agents, tax professionals. Yeah, I mean, I think what Abby mentioned earlier about having some ways to kind of market them as well. So that could be through the putting stuff in the shop small bags and having, even just having them take part in the weekend. And that might just be that having them outside, maybe they serve cider while people walk into some of the other businesses. So then you say on your map, hey, go to, this lawyer's office and he's going to have cider and donuts for anyone who's walking by, or things like that. So find ways to engage them through some of those ways. Abby, did you have some other?
I was just going to say, yeah, make sure that they're open on that day. A lot of those businesses are maybe Monday through Friday typically. So make sure that somebody's in their office and offer cider or hot chocolate or, fun games or something, stop in, take a break, if they're a furniture store or an office supply store or something, make sure, hey, you can come in, have a seat, chat, find out what we do, and they can offer maybe, I saw, the garage, an automotive garage, maybe they do, hey, you bring stop in, you get a coupon for an oil change, something like that. Just get them engaged, make sure they're open, available, somebody's there to talk to people, and then you're promoting them.
That's great. Okay, so I will kind of open up the floor to anyone who wants to share ideas, challenges, anything with Small Business Saturday. And even if it's just sharing what you guys do, I would love to hear some of those. So feel free to either send it in the chat, or you're welcome to unmute as well. So I'll open up the floor. Oh, go ahead, Anne. I see your hand is up.
Okay. Hey, you guys have given so many great ideas. I feel like we should be doing more, but I just we work with our DAB, our Downtown Business Association, and we coordinate with our downtown businesses, and we of course work with American Express, and we obviously pass out all the stuff and the goodies, and everyone looks forward to it. I wish they gave us the same amount of supplies as they used to, but it feels like it's less and less every year. But we always look forward to doing that, and we were our DABA, our Downtown Business Association, does a drawing each year, and they give like a $250 drawing, so that encourages people to come out and shop. We promote about that. We do a holiday. We do a holiday open house the weekend before Shop Small to kind of prime. So we do promotion about that. We also do, maybe I should, we do a little, we start promoting it now about all the dates coming up for all the holidays events, getting people kind of used to that in their mind about the holiday open house, the Shop Small, Giving Tuesday, just to kind of get those primed in their mind, just to get them thinking about it. But the holiday open house is another opportunity for the businesses to stay open late and to have another Saturday to get people thinking about shopping as well. So in addition to our First Fridays that we do, that on First Fridays too, obviously that's another night where they stay open late and shop. And that's a night that we do caroling and caroling through the streets and hot chocolate and stuff like that. So, but you know, that's a little bit different than just Shop Small. So, but on Shop Small, we kind of just do a lot to promote what they're doing one-on-one. So whatever they're doing, we just try to support whatever it is. So
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
I love that. I love that. And I think that that's a good example too of utilizing your partners. There might be other people in the community. You might have a business association, you might have a chamber, and those people might be also doing some, Shop Small, kinds of promotions. So yeah, partner with them for sure. That's always a great idea. Morgan from Wabash, Downtown Wabash Inc., she just shared that they kick off the holiday season with Jingle Jubilee, which is a decades-old holiday kickoff event. And then they glide into that Shop Small weekend kind of coming off of that. So they host a stamping map with rewards of up to $1,100 in Jingle Bucks, where winners can get back into the shops they saw on the stamping map and then spend the Jingle Bucks. So businesses who receive those Jingle Bucks receive a reimbursement from Downtown Wabash Inc. So yeah, that's a great idea. Again, that's another awesome way to then get people to go back in. And especially if they have some of those downtown dollars, I know I've heard them called a lot of different things, but odds are they're going to spend more than what they have in that amount of Jingle Bucks or whatever they might be called. So it's a great way to get people back in and to spend that money. So yeah, I love that. It's great. Do you have any recommendations for how to track the increased traffic, increased businesses during the holiday season? I'd love to encourage our businesses in 12 points to do this. Yeah, so I mean, I think the more that you guys can kind of give them a general first things first is giving them a list of things that they could be tracking. I think often, again, I've never been a business owner, so I can't speak to this fully, but I am sure that they have 1,000 other things on their mind other than trying to track who's coming in and out of their store, all those kinds of things. So I know that they have a lot going on. So if you can give them some measurable things to be tracking ahead of time, that's always good. So again, thinking things like foot traffic. In terms of actually tracking it, I think that I'm trying to think, Abby, do you have any ideas that come off the top of your head for the actual tracking of that data?
So, we would always have volunteers. We had a city market or, a place where we know a lot of people go to if you have a kind of an anchor business. And we would literally have a volunteer sit outside the door and and count the people that came through. So that was kind of a good idea of literal people. And then we would ask our businesses, we wouldn't ask them a direct sales number, but after Shop Small Saturday, we would ask them a percentage, if they had a percentage increase in sales from the year before, and we would kind of average that out. So we could say, from last Small Business Saturday to this Small Business Saturday, they had a 12% increase. Or we would say that maybe the Saturday before or the Saturday after, what did that Shop Small, what was that increase in sales percentage wise? And you really need to make sure you have that relationship with your business owners, that they feel comfortable enough to tell you, and that you're not going to go to other business and say, oh yeah, well, the clothing store had a 12% increase. You have to have that relationship so they know, hey, we're going to take this cumulative and say, district wide or Main Street wide, we had a overall 12% increase in sales from the last Saturday to this Saturday or whatever. But it really does start at that, relationship building, that those businesses are close.
Yeah. And I think there's also, if depending on the amount of volunteers that you would have, especially with counting the foot traffic, maybe you could pass out to some of their employees one of the button trackers that you just count. And I mean, it's tedious, but I think some of them would probably be willing to do it if they could know the amount of people that came in and out. So
the other thing you could do too is have a volunteer go look at license plates, because that kind of helps you. Hey, we have license plates, these counties, or people from these states, and that's another statistic that you can kind of put out is, we had, of the 92 counties in Indiana, we had 50 or whatever, but we also had these neighboring states come.
That's a good idea. And I saw you had your hand raised again. Did you have a thought or an additional question to that?
I was just going to comment that they do track theirs. I mean, you'd be surprised. They track their sales. They usually track their foot traffic pretty well. Most of them, at least mine, when I go to ask them how they're doing for the night or stop in and check in on them, they're pretty in tune with how they're doing for the night. So even if, going back to them and asking if, maybe not all of them do, but you're probably going to get a pretty general good response from a handful, at least a good response from a general number of them that do a good job of tracking their numbers. And so I think you might be surprised when you ask them to have at least, you might get a good handful of really good numbers that would give you a general idea how most of them did for the night. So but really, Abigail, you already pretty much answered the question, so I just lowered my hand. But thank you.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I think, I'm sure you all probably know your businesses enough to know which ones probably are doing a lot of that tracking and which ones maybe aren't, or maybe they're kind of doing it, but it's not maybe they're not maybe tracking it exactly. So something to think about. Morgan, go ahead. I saw your hand is up as well.
Do I need to uncheck that? Lower hand. Okay. It's been a while since I've used Teams. Okay, so this is more of maybe everybody on this call could maybe give me their 2 cents on how they're handling this year. And then, of course, the leaders at the table as well. So we've been hearing more often as we get closer to the holidays about businesses feeling a little bit more discouraged about people coming in to shop because the cost of everything is getting so high. And I think that this year, I think anybody that participates in Small Business Saturday is going to see a dip in sales because the cost of convenience is truly the cost of convenience, and it's less expensive. It's just cheaper to go to those big box stores initially. And so do you guys have any recommendations on how to communicate? I mean, obviously our offices know that's why it's important to shop small, because even though it's not as convenient to get to downtown and their products might have increased in cost, how do you demonstrate to the publics that you're marketing to that even though your favorite small businesses materials, their product lines, their items are more expensive, that's still a good thing for the economy, like the local economy. How do you like clearly demonstrate to them that it's still a good thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have a couple thoughts, but I want to open it up to the group first to see if anyone else is kind of dealing with this or ways that you might be tackling that. So I'll open it up to other people first. If anyone has any thoughts for Morgan. Feel free to either unmute or just throw it in the chat if that's easier. Or maybe we're all having this question, which is okay too.
I think it's great. I'm going to talk against Anne.
Yeah.
I think it's a great question, and probably it's a story behind it, right? It is like that conversation that the dollar spent in your downtown gets recycled and it's economic, it just is spent and it does more for your dollar. I don't know the exact words because I'm not finding the words right now on how you actually share that. But I know I know there's a way to tell that story, and maybe it is finding it, and maybe that's where Abigail or one of your Abigails, you guys probably know what that actually is, and maybe we probably could look it up and share that a little better. But that is the passionate story of downtown. That is what we do. I mean, the money spent downtown, recycled back through that's what's valuable about spending the money downtown. It's so much that's where it's important. So, it needs to happen. That's where it stays in our community. That dollar gets recycled, 6 times? I don't know. It's something like that. So anyway, that's what I'm gonna say, because I don't know the numbers. There's data behind it.
Yes. Yeah. No, you're on the right track, Ian, because that's what I was going to mention was, I mean, Morgan, you're exactly right. Like, it's really hard to communicate to people and really get in their heads, like, why they should try to do this instead of choosing the convenience. Because I know we probably all even struggle, even being people who love to shop local, there's still times that it's like, it is more affordable for me to go through the more convenient option here. So it's hard across the board to get that communicated. But there's a couple different pieces to this. Number one, don't be afraid to pull at the heartstrings and share those stories of your downtown business owners. It's not manipulative because it's true. Like the story. So record video or get a quote and get people to talk about what it's like for them to have been a business owner in your downtown. Maybe they've been there for 30 years or it's a family owned business that's been there for so many years. Have them tell that story. Have them tell the story of making it through COVID. If they're a business that made it through the pandemic, like celebrate that story. Pull at people's heartstrings, because I think that's a big part of why people, especially in Small Business Saturday, really get pulled into it, because they realize like, oh, these are my neighbors. These are people who I care about, that are owning these businesses. So that's kind of number one, is like, don't be afraid in your marketing to tug at some of those stories and pull at the heartstrings of people, because that will typically help people kind of overcome that, like, oh, inflation, and it's easier if I just go through Amazon, and it's, it helps them get over that hump of like, no, but this matters, because it's like, it's almost like I'm giving to like a charity almost, because even though it's a for-profit business, there's meaning behind it. And so there's that piece of it. But then also I agree with Anne. So we're actually going to be releasing an infographic. Our office is, that you guys can all share out, and I will send it to all of you here soon. But that's going to hit on some of those stats. Like, for example, I pulled it up here so I could see it, but 99.4% of businesses in Indiana are small. That's a huge percentage of businesses in Indiana that are small. And I think sometimes that's a stat that is like, really wakes people up sometimes, to the fact that like, this is a huge part of our economy in our state specifically. This is why this is so important. So that's 1.2 million Hoosier jobs are supported by small businesses. again, that's a huge number. That's a lot of jobs in our state. So that's another way to kind of get people to see the big picture. So for the number that we polled is for every $100 spent locally, at least $68 stays in your community. So that again is really hard. It's getting people to see that this helps your local economy. It keeps money in your community rather it going out to who knows where. And so really hitting home on that stat. And then we also are going to have a slide that kind of breaks down even more reasons to shop small, kind of some more like, again, pulling at those heartstring reasons why it's important to be going and shopping in your community. So share those numbers. I will, yeah, good. I'm glad that was what you needed, Morgan, because we will definitely get that out to all of you. We'll share it on our Facebook, so you're welcome to reshare it, or I'm going to actually send you guys the graphics as well to share. So, so great. But yeah, good questions. If anyone has any other thoughts on that, please feel free to share.
Yeah, so that's the other thing. So Abby brought up going back to COVID. Think about like what you guys did as a community when you were, our businesses had to shelter in place and they couldn't be open. Pull out those same like promotion techniques that you guys used during then. We did on the windows of those closed businesses, we did like lists of why you love to support this business. Pull that back out. Do something like that. The hearts. Do it. Like just make sure people are understanding like the same thing, even though they might not be completely closed. Costs have risen so high, but we still need to support those local businesses because these are your neighbors, your friends. Your kids go to school together, or whatever. Pull those techniques you learned during COVID. Pull those back out.
Agree. What other ideas, challenges, successes have you guys, other people on the call, have you had with Small Business Saturday? Open that back up again if anyone has any thoughts.
We have our businesses here in 12 Points and Terre Haute really banding together. They're working with the city to shut down the street so that's like completely walkable and just family friendly, especially that day. And so we're really, from a 12 Points Revitalization not-for-profit standpoint, kind of stepping back and letting them take their reins. And so that feels really good after working 3 years to get businesses in the area, that we have business owners who are really taking pride about being there.
Good. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, if you can ideally, if you can close down streets that day or make it really walkable, like I was saying earlier, think about the layout of your downtown. Are there businesses who aren't so easy to see? If so, try to find ways to get people to them, where it's, again, easy, it's fun, people can walk down there with kids and it's safe. I know many of you have highways that run through your downtown, and I know that's not ideal, but try your best to work with the city to try to make it as safe and nice for people to be down there as possible. So yeah, thanks for sharing, Tiffany. That's great. Anyone else? I know we're getting close to time here, but I'll open it up for real quick if anyone else has any other thoughts. Okay, I'm not seeing or hearing anything. So I will encourage you to go take a look at that post that Abby, she posted the other day and asked some of you guys, okay, what are some of the things that you're starting to do to promote shopping small this holiday season? So I'm going to read off a couple, but then I encourage you to go and look. We had like 20 comments on that post. So that was awesome that so many people shared. But I know Kristen from Kendallville, she said they're promoting all the specials for their downtown merchants. So again, kind of saying what's the deals that are going on. And then encouraging them to make this year an extra special experience for consumers by following these 6 tips. So they shared some tips with their business owners. And sometimes I think that's a great idea because some of your business owners might just not know some of those extra mile things to do to get consumers to come in and take part. So I thought that was really cool. She shared the photos of those on the post, so feel free to go and pull from that. Uptown Project is hosting an outdoor holiday market, promoting many local vendors. I know we have several people doing the holiday market, so I think that's great. Heather from New Albany said that there tomorrow through Christmas, consumers can enter a weekly can enter a contest by shopping local. So they budgeted $1,000. They bought gift cards from local businesses, and then they'll make some like bundles of like $100 or $200, and then they'll give those out to people who are shopping local. So she also posted an informational flyer with that that you can rip off and duplicate, which I love. So, and then she posted a few other ideas as well. Yeah, and then Anne, who's on the call, she talked about their holiday open house. Missy talked about their custom gift tags. I know some main streets do gift wrapping, so they'll do that as like a fun service, or you can, that might be a great thing for one of your service-based businesses to take on, is have them do some gift wrapping for people or something like that to kind of get them through their doors. But go on and look at that post. I know we're at 1 o'clock, so I want to be mindful of your time. But thank you so much to those of you who joined. I really appreciate it, and we're excited to see. Don't forget to also share your, if you are doing anything for Small Business Saturday, I sent out that Microsoft form and I'll send it out again, but fill that out. Let us know what you're doing, because we are going to try to promote a few of you on our Facebook. And then, yeah, we'll try our best to share what we can from what you guys are doing. And again, I'll get that infographic to you guys as well. So have a good day, everyone. Thanks again for joining.
Thank you.